The Patriot Act is set to expire on June 1st of this year, and so in advance of that, Congress is working overtime to renew it with a bill that would do just that. Now, Rand Paul is determined to make sure that that does not actually come to pass, and so in advance of that goal, he staged a 10.5-hour quasi-filibuster yesterday to try to shut down debate and stop it from happening. Now, spoiler for you, it was not actually a filibuster, did not actually have a chance of stopping the debate from going on. It was a symbolic gesture, but symbolic gestures do have value at times. And so we want to recognize what he was doing in that attempt by reading you a few of his quotes. So first he said, I don't think we're any safer looking at every American's records, which I think we can largely agree with. I think it needs to be said, especially in the halls of Congress. He says, there comes a time in the history of nations when fear and complacency allow power to accumulate and liberty and privacy to suffer. That time is now, and I will not let the Patriot Act, the most unpatriot of acts, to go unchallenged.
Yeah, it's a good line.
I like that line. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
they shut down the quasi-filibuster. Other people were making speeches during it and everything, and now the debate will proceed.
Yeah, he had about 10 senators come by to support him, 7 Democrats, 3 Republicans, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, they've made some changes in the law in accordance with the federal court decision that finally said this is illegal.
Bulk collection.
Right, so they're making it a little, they're narrowing it a little, but not very much at all. And it's good that we're talking about it because, of course, since the Patriot Act first showed up in front of Congress, we have not had any kind of meaningful, real debate about it.
Yeah.
And he's exactly right. What was his quote there? Fear and what?
Fear and complacency.
Fear and complacency
That
ruled
is
the
the
day
toxic brew.
in the fall of 2001, and it's still ruling the day here. You know, we see the ISIS stories. We see, hey, we killed ISIS as number 2, and they took over Iraq's second biggest city. Yeah. Right? You know, it doesn't matter.
Apparently, they did not need that guy to take over the second biggest city. Apparently.
Hold on, did they have a number 3? Oh man, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That guy's just gonna move.
It's a good thing that that wasn't the only guy who had the address of that city, like how to get there.
Totally, yeah. He's not the only guy with a smartphone.
Yeah.
He didn't Google Map. They could Google Map Ramadi. So, but we're just as scared then, nearly just as scared. Let's not go overboard. We were more terrified then, but we're nearly just as scared now as we were then, and we don't want to know. We know the Patriot Act is complicated, and so therefore we just let it happen without any meaningful debate.
Yeah.
And then we get
overnight.
We get clowns like Ron Johnson beating valuable members of the Senate in Russ Feingold, who, Wisconsin didn't need Russ Feingold. We all needed Russ Feingold.
Yeah.
Conservatives needed Russ Feingold. True conservatives who would be worried about broad government overreach and who would worried about privacy needed Russ Feingold, who would have been there with Rand Paul in this,
exactly.
making a stand.
And might soon be, actually, since he is running again.
Is that right? I didn't miss that story.
He's planning on running again, actually.
Oh, good. All right. Swell.
Yeah, and so, look, I think that you're totally right. People were so overwhelmed with fear in the wake of 9/11 that they did not need any debate over a bill like this. They didn't seem to care, and they didn't get any debate. There was no debate. I think that if the provisions of the Patriot Act that are going to be allowed to continue are so important that our national security relies on it, and we never got an actual chance as a country to debate this, I think that they should do what they keep saying they're going to do with the Affordable Care Act. They should allow the entire thing to lapse, and then honestly, if it's so important, put a full week of time in the Capitol where every individual part of it is debated, and they can show us the evidence of how it's protected us, why we need to continue it, and then they vote on each individual one. Not one huge bill that has 10 different types of surveillance on our phones and 30 different types on our Wi-Fi, and nobody understands any part of it. I think they need to go line by line and debate each one so that they can be on record as being for certain parts and against other parts. They probably will not do that. I think that they will just extend it off into
Of course they're going to extend it. Of course, a vote not to extend it is a vote for the terrorists. Part of the fear is not just fear that ISIS is coming. That, to go back to Jade Helm, the suggestion that terrorists during these maneuvers are going to cross the border.
Yeah.
That's the other part of this that's being suggested.
ISIS will use it.
Right,
as
that
an
ISIS will
opportunity.
somehow use this. ISIS will use the fact that U.S. military are in the area to go to the area. That seems like
that doesn't
seems
make
like a
sense.
puzzling decision on ISIS's part.
A little bit. Yeah. So look, it's certainly good that he did even what passes nowadays for a filibuster. It's kind of ironic that you can do a filibuster without ever having to actually stand up and speak. There's an assumed filibuster in every single bill that happens. And when you actually do a filibuster, it's not really a filibuster. It's a very weird inversion of history in that way.
I also read, I didn't see this, but I read that he was very honest about the political reasons for doing this. He was honest about, like, yeah, I'm running for president. I'm trying to get people to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, good. That's honest. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
yeah.
if
In
the
fact,
policy that you're pushing for is good for America, then I don't mind you exploiting it to become president. Bernie Sanders probably thinks that pushing for the College for All Act will help him to become president, but it's also a good policy, so push away. I don't care.
College education, for the most part, was free. You could go to state college for incredibly cheaply as recently as 25, 30 years ago.
Okay.
It's
a long time ago.
It's not a crazy, insane concept.
And they have it in a number of countries
in other
today.
Western countries.